Welcome to the Northern Nut Growers Association annual meeting. This is the session about hazelnut, and we'd like to give you some updates on the situation in North America and around the world. And welcome to Syracuse, by the way. I am Shawn Mehlenbacher, leader of the Hazelnut Breeding and Genetics Project at Oregon State University, and the moderator of this session. Hazelnuts. Most domestic consumption, most of what we eat in the United States and Canada is of imported kernels. North American production would offset imports. That is, if we produce more ourselves, it would replace some of the kernels that we import. Supply fluctuates in all of the major producers. There are a limited number of producers. Turkey produces about 64% of the world crop and sets the world price. If we had more countries, more regions that produce hazelnuts, that would add consistency to the supply, the yearly global production. Demand exceeds supply. We're actually in a very good situation for hazelnut. The demand for kernels continues to increase, and that's largely driven by the chocolate makers who use hazelnuts in their products. There is an opportunity for hazelnut producers to meet demand, local demand, global demand for high quality kernels. Some 93% of the world market is for kernels, the other 7% for in-shell nuts. The acreage is increasing in traditional locations, Turkey, Italy, and in Oregon. And there are new plantings going in other locations, Chile, Georgia, Azerbaijan, Serbia, Romania. And in some cases, it looks like the climate is suitable. In other cases, time will tell if it is. The challenges to increased hazelnut production in North America. First is eastern filbert blight. It's caused by a fungus that's native to the eastern United States and eastern Canada and lives on Corylus americana, the American hazelnut. So it's a native fungus. We need genetic resistance. That's the most effective control method. Climatic adaptation is also needed in new cultivars. Hazelnuts are very particular about where they grow and where they produce a crop consistently. Typically near large bodies of water, so it's not too hot, not too cold. Hazelnuts flower in the winter, and that's quite unusual. They're also self-incompatible. I've been working with Tom Molnar at Rutgers University for about 20 years now. We have identified in our collections more than 100 sources of resistance. That is, yes, no, it's either resistant or susceptible. And of those, we've mapped 44. That is, we know what chromosome and what location the resistance is on. So far, we have found resistance genes on 5 different chromosomes. We have DNA markers, and we use them for marker-assisted selection and for pyramiding. That is to create selections that have more than one resistance gene. We also work with quantitative resistance, and that is expressed as fewer and smaller cankers, with Toniti giffoni from southern Italy and Sacagawea being the Czechs. They have good quantitative resistance. So with Rutgers, we have a total of more than 72 sources of quantitative resistance that also have good nuts. Now, eastern filbert blight is a challenge to work with because the disease phenotyping is difficult. That is it resistant or is it susceptible? If it's susceptible, how susceptible is it? It's a pathogen that has a 2-year life cycle. From the time of inoculation until the time that you measure the cankers is nearly 2 years. That includes a 16-month latent period where you can look at the plant and not know if it's infected or not. Escapes are common. So you inoculate a susceptible plant, it develops no disease, but it is susceptible. And you don't find that out until 2 years after inoculation. We will be planting in the future more selections and seedlings at Rutgers University, where the disease pressure is much higher than it is in Corvallis, Oregon. Climatic adaptation. We view uh, different zones as being well suited for hazelnut or marginally suited, and the floral biology is related to that. In the Pacific Northwest, that is Willamette Valley of Oregon and nearby places, we have a mild climate that's well suited for hazelnut. We can grow European cultivars. In the fruit belt, that is the mid-Atlantic states and the Great Lakes states, think of this, where can you grow peaches? If you can grow peaches, you have a chance of growing hazelnut. In the fruit belt, that includes New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Michigan, south of Buffalo, New York, where the Great Lakes or the Atlantic affect the climate quite a bit. They can grow European cultivars in some locations and hybrid hazelnuts. That's American European hybrids in other more challenging locations. In colder areas or areas with fluctuating temperatures, such as the upper Midwest and the Great Plains states, they're pretty much limited to hybrid hazelnuts to bring in the cold hardiness. And that can be the F1 generation, the F2 generation, or backcross, either to the American or to the European parent. The unique floral biology of hazelnut plays a role in this. First of all, they're self-incompatible, and you have to know what's compatible with what. I spend the month of February identifying the incompatibility alleles in my selections and cultivars. Hazelnut is monoecious. It has separate male and female flowers. The catkins are the male inflorescences. They have a low chilling requirement and they respond to warm temperatures. The females have a high chilling requirement, but they continue to develop when it's cool. And so the time of flowering changes from year to year and place to place, and the overlap of pollen shed and female receptivity also changes. So you have to be careful about what works in your location. Fortunately for us in the Willamette Valley, it's like a refrigerator for months on end, and we always have good overlap of pollen shed and female receptivity. That's it for my slides. I would welcome any questions from the audience, and other panelists are free to answer questions also. The Turkish cultivars are Corylus avellana, the European species. The Turkish tree hazel is a different species. That's a tree hazel with a single trunk, which is native to Turkey, also native to several countries in the Balkan Peninsula. But the Turkish tree hazel is not grown for nuts. It's a nice landscape plant. I would say that the number of areas that are suitable for growing hazelnut is quite limited. That's part of it. The number of countries is limited because of climate, and that's coupled with huge demand for chocolate hazelnut products. And the makers would like to have more supply. In our tests, we quantify quantitative resistance by counting cankers and measuring cankers, in our case, on small trees that have been exposed under a structure as potted trees. And at Rutgers University, they plant young trees out in the field. Sometimes they tie infected branches to what they plant, and then they watch the amount of disease that develops over time. We hope that with a combination of the quantitative resistance in the cultivar and farmers paying attention to managing their orchards and cutting out cankers and spraying fungicides, that quantitative resistance can keep an orchard alive for decades. We plant our yield trials typically with a total of 11 trees per selection or cultivar. And we collect data in years 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And by the end of the 7th leaf, we digest the data and make a decision.